Hello students, I am Tanmay De and welcome to Sanchoita. In this lesson, you can learn to take dictation of the editorial passage. Today's passage is an editorial passage of the Hindu. Speed will be 100 words per minute. Total words 1068. Same dictation also available at 80 words per minute. Check my previous dictation. As you know, readback and transcription are two main important factors of stenography. For this, you can turn on subtitle button. Knowing meaning and outlines of important words also help you to gain speed and accuracy in stenography. So, after the dictation, you should try to read back your script and do transcription. After the dictation, you will get meanings and outlines of some important words and the full passage. Now, be ready. I will start the dictation after the countdown of 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. It is a paradox that precisely at a time when the salience of cross-national and global challenges has significantly increased, nation-states are less willing to cooperate and collaborate in tackling them. COVID-19 recognizes no national or regional boundaries as it rages across the world. One would have expected that countries, particularly those with technological and financial capabilities, would agree to pool their resources together to work on an effective and affordable antivirus vaccine. Instead, there are several parallel national efforts underway, even as the World Health Organization WHO has put together a COVAX alliance for the same purpose. There is a competitive compulsion at work which may be appropriate in economic and commercial domains. When the lives of people are at stake, active collaboration would have enhanced our collective ability to overcome what has become a public health economic crisis. But we live in an era when nationalist urges fueled by a political opportunism diminish the appeal of international cooperation, as pointed out by Nicholas Eversted of the National Bureau of Asian Research the post-pandemic world will have no choice but to contend at last with a problem long in the making, the awful dilemma of global integration without solidarity. Decode. This year's Nobel Peace Prize to the World Food Programme WFP is a recognition of its role in combating hunger and malnutrition across the developing world. But the WFP's achievement is modest not because it is an inefficient institution, but because it is perennially underfunded. But more important is the message which this award is sending to the world, that we need multilateralism as an expression of international solidarity. It is also a warning that the novel coronavirus pandemic is reversing the substantial gains made in the fight against poverty. According to the WFP, 132 million more people could become malnourished as a consequence of the pandemic. To the 690 million people who go to bed each night on an empty stomach, perhaps another 100 million or more will be added. This counts for a major worldwide catastrophe, and unless the conscience of the world would aroused, we will be condemning vast pool of humanity to living in wretchedness and deprivation. The Nobel Prize to the WFP will hopeful nudge our collective conscience to come together and relieve this looming humanitarian crisis. The United Nations is at the center of multilateral institutions and processes. It is celebrating the 75th anniversary of its founding. While it is a pale shadow of the vision with which it was invested at its founding, nevertheless, it has kept alive the notion of international solidarity and cooperation. If it has become increasingly marginal in mobilizing international responses of global challenges, the fault lies with its most powerful member countries. They have deprived the UN of resources. They have resisted efforts to institute long overdue reforms. 75 years on, its structures no longer reflects the changes in power equations that have taken place. It is anachronistic that a country such as India continues to be denied permanent membership of the Security Council, and yet despite these disabilities, the UN is now an essential part of the fabric of international relations. Its role has become even more important precisely because the salience of global issues has expanded and the need for multilateral approaches in funding solutions has greatly increased. India has been a consistent advocate of multilateralism, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently said within double quote, India firmly believes that the path to achieve sustainable peace and prosperity is through multilateralism. As children of planet Earth, we must join hands of address our common challenges and achieve our common goals. Decode. There is a network multilateral institution, several as part of the UN system. Others are intergovernmental in nature, still others may be non-governmental of a hybrid character. This is a network which enables governance in areas which require coordination among nation states and set norms to regulate the behavior of states so as to avoid conflict and to ensure both equitable burdens sharing and equally a fair distribution of benefits. This network continues to function and deliver benefits to participating states despite the less than propitious international environment. However, going forward, there are more complex challenges which would require a different mindset and patterns of behavior. While there are multilateral institutions, they have become platforms for contestations among their member states. There is recognition of the need to cooperate, but this is seen as compulsion rather than desirable. When participating in multilateral negotiations, whether at the Committee on Disarmament in Geneva or later at multilateral negotiations on climate change in the run-up to the Copenhagen Climate Change Conference in 2009, my brief would be the same as other country representatives: concede as little as possible and extract as much as you can. If all delegations work on the same brief, it is any wonder that even a supposedly within double quote successful decode outcome is invariably the least common denominator. This may be appropriate when dealing with trade or security matters, but not in tackling global challenges such as climate change or the current pandemic. Given the scale, urgency, and seriousness of the challenges we confront, we need maximal, not minimal responses. The dynamics of negotiations and their outcomes would dramatically change if delegations came with a brief to contribute as much as possible within the limitation of resources and demand the minimum in terms of assets needs. This is the international solidarity which a globalized world requires to handle the dense interconnections that bind us. Globalization may have stalled, but as we become increasingly digitized, there will be more, not less globalization. The pandemic has triggered galloping globalization in the digital economy. Globalizations driven by technology, and as long as technology remains the key driver of economic growth, there is no escape from globalization. Do not we need to first focus on getting our domestic imperatives right and then think of international cooperation? In the contemporary world, the line separating the domestic from the external has become increasingly blurred. In tackling domestic challenges, deeper external engagement is often indispensable. This is certainly true of climate change. Even if India's carbon emissions became zero tomorrow, climate change would continue to affect us if others do not also reduce their emissions. The pandemic originated in the third country but soon raged across national borders. If there had been a robust and truly global early warning system, perhaps it could have been contained. Stop writing. Now I am showing you some important words outline. This is part 1. This is part 2. Now I am showing you meaning of some important words. This is part 1. This is part 2. This is part 3. And this is the final part. Now I am showing you the full passage. This is part 1. This is part 2. This is part 3. This is part 4. And this is the final part. Through like, dislike, share and subscribe, you can encourage or criticize my work. Thanks for watching. Take care.